This is the Ed Non-Tech Podcast, conversations about education, technology, and culture with Dr. Doug Reed and Dr. Matt Stranick. Thank you for joining us.
My name is Dr. Doug Reed, and I am located on Abagway, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people.
My name is Dr. Matthew Stranick, and I am located in Manaquesk in St. John, New Brunswick, which is situated on the traditional and unceded territory of the Wolastoqiyik Maliseet people.
Okay, and away we go.
Away we go. Oh my God, we're back again, to quote the Backstreet Boys. I'm Dr. Matt Stranick, and this is also with me, Dr. Doug Reed, and this is the first recording. We're hoping it works. We're making an assumption that it's going to work.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's been a while. It really has, and even just the fact that it's been a while factors into today's topic. So, Doug, why don't you tell us a little bit about today's topic?
So, we're going to talk about balancing the load, educator work-life balance. And I picked this because we've just come off basically like a summer-long hiatus. And I thought it was a nice way to roll into the new year, or the new set of questions and discussions that we're going to have. And to talk about the hiatus, how about you give us an update on on your whole life, because you've got a pretty new background behind you.
Yeah, this isn't even like a Microsoft background. This is where I live now. But before I start to gloat, because it is going to sound a lot like gloating, I'll just say that I kind of, speaking to today's topic, I have had the tendency before, because I moved for my job. I mean, first of all, I moved from Kamloops, BC, where the show kind of originated, about a month and a half ago at this point. So I guess it's even more like 7 weeks, because I got here basically Canada Day. And in that period, since arriving at the friggin' hotel, the former Colonial Inn, which I understand has a certain cultural significance here in St. John, because everything here is old and therefore has some kind of cultural significance, is what I'm noticing. But I've crossed this great wide country of ours 5 times in 7 weeks, doing bi-coastal dad duty is what that is, shifting my kids from one end to the other. Because at the very beginning of it, they came back from Korea, and I've been thinking, I can, they're old enough, I can just get them on an airplane all the way across by themselves. So not the case. I would not trust Air Canada to do anything correctly. And I even tried WestJet as just to see how the other half lives, and was not better at all. So in between all that, I've started a new job, and I'm living in this rad Victorian, late Victorian era brick home, fully furnished. It's an apartment suite, and it was built in 1878, so 100 years prior to my appearance on this planet. And I'm paying for I'm paying the same as what I was paying in BC for much enhanced circumstances. So that's kind of it. I kind of, when those posts went up, a few weeks ago at this point, the ones that we recorded and then we waited a while for, I kind of mentioned just as to what the nature of my work is. I'm in a new field, a new industry somewhat, but I'm still doing the e-learning thing, which is awesome. And I've been getting pretty explicit support from two of the very few people who, within my job, who are, in charge of my life. They're not in charge of my life, but they're good people to get along with, and they've said complimentary things about the podcast a few times, each of them. So,
right on.
Kudos to us, Doug. I'm saying.
Well, that's it. And a part of the reason for the hiatus was because work-life balance matters. And you had, like, if I look at our lives as like a three-legged stool, right? Two of the legs of your stool did a lot of changing. If this podcast is the third leg, then yeah, we can hold off until we're ready to go again.
And I appreciate that spirit of common decency. I'll copy and paste the same thing for 8 p.m. tonight when I record the next music podcast with Dan. So, for instance, listener / audience, we started to record this yesterday morning, took a run at it, but because I'm in a new tech setup, new, internet connection stuff to deal with, different physical environment in pretty much every way. And then even so, we scuppered it. We scuppered it yesterday, to use the term. And now today, there was like this whole 30-minute almost preamble of, trying it again. So now I'm on a different machine than I was yesterday, different location, and we're taking a different approach even to deploying Skype for the recording. We're giving that over to Doug here, and he's going to shift the recording out to me to make the best optimal use of the home-based internet. So
I have the power now.
Well, you do.
No, I get to have the recording power.
You get it'll be attached to your cloud-based online thing. Yeah, no, man, it's good.
And part of the joy of that is we both have terminal degrees in ed tech, and we roll with it, right? It's just we roll with it and we figure out another way. That sounds like educators.
Well, as I'm getting older, I find the word terminal has sort of connotations with it. Like, I don't want terminal anything, man. It's no.
I refuse to get another degree, so it is my terminal degree.
Do you refuse? Would you? So I was having this. One of the cool things about being in this area is that I got access to family on the regular who I haven't seen much over the years because I've been gone.
You've been away
doing other stuff, and I was helping my mom yesterday and my uncle with some minor landscaping tasks on the yard, and I was just like, it's weird how I find myself advocating for post-secondary, because I'm just like, Mom, Uncle Barry, you could be, have you ever looked into those, when you're old, right, 65 plus, a lot of places, I think most institutions will let you take free courses, like audit them or whatever. And I was just like, you should give this a whirl. You're both, retain enhanced neuroplasticity as you're getting older and whatnot. So I could see that. I mean, that's not that far away from me either necessarily. So.
Yeah, there's two programs I would take if I were to go back. One is a heritage retrofit carpentry, because I like building stuff, and astronomy. I just borrowed a telescope from the Charlottetown Library, and so I was looking at Neptune last night, and I was looking at Saturn and Vega, the star and stuff, and it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'd like to learn more, but I don't think I need a piece of paper. I think I
no, well, fair enough. Credentialed, you'll just be continuing your strong commitment and path to you know, I don't want to say self-directed learning, but you know,
Lifelong learning.
lifelong learning. Thank you.
Triple L.
Yes. Okay. And so here's another thing. I mean, I kind of was like that thing that I advocate for at work in a document. I'm like, so I'm coming off 18 months of not working in an office kind of setting at all. So, well, I haven't been at work physically, like, you know, I've done virtual whatever at the very end of my TRU thing, but like I'm showing up 5 days a week physically to a job site, dressed and prepared and comporting myself in such setting. And I have to say, it sounds pretty benign, and it's going well because I have great colleagues and I enjoy what I do. But at the same time, it's like, man, this is a mental kind of whatever shift just in and of itself, quite frankly, physical and mental shift. So I've started just to kind of like, you know, and being aware that I'm suffering for sure from some kind of version of jet lag just from having been across the country the number of times that I have. And never mind that I'm also now into being physically far from my kids, you know, for the first time, you know, apart from vacations since they were born. So you're talking about work-life balance. I mean, I'm just kind of throwing out personal details here. So what I've been really trying to do myself, because my biggest priority is like starting this job in a good way. And I've basically been really kind of clamping down in terms of what I pay attention to, what I give my energy to, such that just during the week, I don't do much of anything besides go to work, clock in at my apartment, and actually the first thing I've been doing is like taking a nap after work, just because like
Great.
sustained energy of like going there, being present, and then like it's, you know, it's great, but afterwards I'm just like mentally and physically tuckered out, you know, which I just gotta, you know, build myself back up into that routine. But I'm also aware if I tried to do a bunch of stuff, like if I just, God help us all, you know, tried to teach an extra class, you know, for something, or, you know, like just take on some kind of, I don't know, extraneous social commitments or whatnot, it would just be detrimental to the purpose of hitting, you know, my new role with my amount of energy and attention. Oh, did I just flicker out there?
Just for a sec. It's okay.
Okay. So again, not to go too far into the weeds with my own personal.
No, but that the Mayala and Chaluka work-life balance amongst teachers, and I hope I pronounced Chaluka correctly, talks about exactly what you're just talking about, right? Because you have felt very unbalanced for 18 months plus, right? Because at TRU, you had to see it coming.
I felt off my game the whole time I was at TRU.
Yeah, me too.
Like, you know, you kind of got the shorter experience there in terms of like being on their clock. But for me, it's like I was slotted into a tenure track role. I mean, that tenure track role thing at the front of it just, you know, had a certain, I don't know, I just, it's, I told somebody, you know, I've been telling people, it's like, I'm at the point now where, you know, on a salary scale, I'm, you know, I've made way more in my career, even like, you know, as recently as 3 or 4 years ago, but just like, because I have a much smaller sort of team of people that I report to, because I'm in a, you know, place where I've got family and connections going back, there's all this kind of culture and support around it where I, you know, can just ease into it and just kind of do what I'm gonna. Whereas, I mean, I just felt like, you know, I was kind of like, okay, you know, here you started out in your role. We're not going to give you much guidance. We're just going to throw you into it, and then, you know, kind of leave you to it until we got some kind of complaint. That's kind of how I felt I mean, that's how the culture was for me when I was there 5+ years ago, right? So I guess I'll probably leave it at that. But I mean, it's just I don't know if that's post-secondary in general or if that's that particular place. You know, if it's just like that's how faculty stuff is anywhere, which I kind of think it is, then fine.
It's
but maybe you have more insight on that, Doug.
yeah, I do, because when you look at the Punai and Camboy article from 2013, work-life balance amongst teachers and higher ed institutions.
Yep.
One thing I look at is the balance was missing, right? Like there's work, there's life, and then there's the balance.
Yep.
And the work wasn't balanced. And one thing with TRU is I took a look at how many job ads there were.
Yes.
TRU should have like 200,000 people working there for the number of job ads and what the turnover is at that place. Right? And I'm not throwing them under the bus. That's just the way it is. I worked at a school district in Wetaskiwin, and it was the same thing. People would come down and say, are you guys as big as Edmonton? Because you have more job ads every year than Edmonton has. And Edmonton's 1 million people, and Wetaskiwin was not 1 million people. So it was, there's some of that, but there's a bunch of other stuff going on there. And so for us to find the balance, right? How can we be more productive in our job, right? Especially when you're just thrown in, right? It's like, here you go. Yeah, figure it out. It's like when they used to take babies and throw them in the water and say, swim now, right?
Well,
yeah, that's not traumatizing.
Yeah, I definitely, I felt like a canary in the coal mine, only because mine was like the first time with that role. And again, I just, anyway, I don't want to make this, but I'll tell you what, Doug, this does kind of circle back in a way, because if you actually go back on the WordPress site now, you know, the first demo reels and whatnot for this podcast came out a year ago.
Yeah.
So like I had floated it to you at that point, you had said yes, and I think we were at that point where I was still not commenting on your involvement publicly, but
right.
You know, it was
That's
like
fair. Yeah.
under development. So you know, the fact that over 52 weeks, or you know, not even at this point, we're on episode 31 or 32, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
I think, you know, like if our goal was to do it every week, you know, we haven't. But,
No.
you know, if we look at it, it's been more than every 2 weeks. And that takes into account, you know, like a full 2-month-ish hiatus just now. So in terms of tempo, we had slack in the system. Our overall thing is undiminished. And, you know, one thing about like just the future directions and whatnot, I mean, I've said before, I think really we just keep adding to the WordPress. We keep adding to the YouTube clips and audio clips. I do think that at some point we can even take a stretch off and just go, okay, how out and how do we make this into, you know, a book or some other kind of media package, without saying not to get back to it, but we may want to, you know, at episode 50, say, you know, maybe just stop and take stock, right? Scrape what we have, right? The conceptual frameworks, the terminology, and then, you know, that ends up maybe as a book proposal or something. Maybe this is, you know, I should be doing this behind the scenes, but I guess part of, you know, work-life balance for me is like, I always am kind of looking to how does this link to what's next, right?
Yes.
How do I make this future? I'm forward thinking, I'm future thinking. And again, there have been times at work where I've just been feeling like I'm just butting my head against the wall because there's no throughput. There's no connection to how this even means anything to anybody. You know, and just so having like a wider sense of context and a sense of future is, I think, a characteristic for me, now that I think about it, that's important, you know, for the home stuff as well as, you know, for the work stuff as well.
And that's it. And the Punai and Cambodia article talks about career and ambition, and we just covered both of those, right? You got a new footing with that. And then it's health, pleasure, leisure, family, spiritual development, right? And it's like, there was an imbalance before, and there was imbalance with both of us. Right? This isn't an on you thing, and it's the finding the balance that makes good functioning in the rest of our lives. So it's how are we, and thankfully we're getting there, right? Like sometimes it feels like slow steps, but we're getting there. Because you just mentioned, right, like no energy to take on extra stuff right now, not to teach a class, not to take the extra social commitments. I have had the wood in my garage to build a bench for 2 months. And I've had the plan scribbled for 4 months, and I have wanted the bench for more than a year. And yesterday, when we had to pull the pin and say, no, we're not doing the recording, I went outside and spent the day, and I got at least 85% of the bench done and installed. So today I'm going to go finish it, but it's the same thing. It's the balance. Like sometimes we just need that mental energy. We need that reflective break, and good for us for taking it, right? We need to identify it because the other people in our lives do better when we have a balance.
That's exactly so. That's exactly so. And so, for anybody within the educator function where your kind of work has, a strong personal connection to the people who encounter it, giving yourself the ability to function at your best by, taking a step back, taking the wellness check, taking the wellness break. So funny thing about getting divorced and, moving and across the country and being unemployed and this whole wonderful, before I left, I had books, not just records. I made a clear plan to have the records brought over, and it was very successful. But the books, I've never strayed from an opportunity to buy a book. So I had a bunch of them. And I'm one of these people that prides themselves on their unread library. It's like, I've always got something I can read. And it's like, okay, I just don't have the resources to bring the books. So the books ended up with my kid's mom. And I know at that house, she's not going to read them because she's a busy lady. My kids may have access to them, but I'm thinking their interests may not. But this is all to say that anything I had been reading, I managed to, I brought a few specific books with me, knowing kind of what I was in for. The Paulo Freire remain just around the corner here. But something that's been helping me a lot lately is, it's hard to tell here, but it's A Guide to the Good Life, The Ancient Art of Stoic Joy. So, my thing about the Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, and Seneca, Cicero, that whole crowd. So there's this professor in the US who, for Oxford Publishing, basically sort of culled their, various works, their various writings, for it's like, what do they have to say about living life well? Because everybody kind of thinks of the Stoic philosophers as being these kind of joyless, kind of Vulcanish people, but it's not really the case. And part of what this is, and what I see for this in terms of the podcast, is like, I haven't had time for much, but I keep trudging into this and just pulling it out, and I find it kind of anchors my day at the beginning and anchors my day at the end, because with them, the idea was you set what will make you happy as low as you can. That in itself is being important, but then also making it something that is I guess scalable as well. So
Yes.
It's not saying it sucks to be rich. It's like money is sort of something that if you have it, fine, but if you don't need it. It's not worth pursuing for its own end. So there's this whole notion of just keeping things balanced, keeping things in their own perspective. And it really is something where I'm looking at this and I'm like, I have not done an awesome job of this, in the past. And so now, again, work-life balance, sort of keeping things in their appropriate perspective, holding back my energy, outside of the work environment, knowing that my physical and mental condition is like in flux right now because of all the change. Again, I hate to keep sort of saying like I'm a friggin' case study for this, but this is just to say that these kind of readings and these kind of mindfulness checks have been really helpful to me lately, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The 2013 Mayer et al. Article, Work-Life Balance and Job Satisfaction Amongst Teachers.
Yep.
The stuff you just described was a whole lot of things to help you find that satisfaction in your life, right?
Definitely.
It's you got a job you're happy with. The organizational commitment is there, right? We're not even thinking about turnover or absenteeism, and you've got good citizenship going on, right? Like when you talk about the people that you're working with and how great they are and stuff, well, yeah, that's citizenship. And it was citizenship that we didn't get to experience a whole lot at our previous institution.
It was very much just like, here you go, pal, like,
Yeah.
good luck, swimming off the Titanic as it sinks. I mean, like, or something. But yeah, man, I hear you. No, it's really like, in terms of like hiring somebody, and then just, like, well, if they're good enough at it, if they're committed enough to it, they'll thrive. We're not like somebody. It's just like, again, I hate to like scrape away at it, but it stuck in my craw. Like, the chair of my department and the director, they had me into the office 6 months in, and at one point the chair was just like, "This isn't fucking high school, Matthew," and I'm like, "Great, thank you. Like, you're giving me every reason not to buy into anything you're telling me now." And I think it's fair to say, I mean, I've kind of held this back, but after I got my first 2 like written performance reviews, I mean, I got 2 more, but I didn't read them. I'm just like, you people are not giving me anything in way of support. You're just basically using this as a way to document a litany of complaints. And it's just like, I can't take this on because the negativity of it will cause my head to explode. And it just kind of like, that was my path, right? It was a toxic time. I'll use that word. I have used that word. And I'll just, it's not like, oh, woe is me. It's just, so, and that was a case where I did not have any real sense of appropriate boundary because I just felt like everything that was going on at work in that regard was a pretty strong reflection of me as a person. So that was during a time when my personal life, at home, because so much of that is interrelated. I mean, it's chicken or the egg. I don't know, as to say which sort of caused the exacerbation of the other, but all I can say is my kids came out of it like champs, and they're still kicking it like champs and camels. So, what's left of camels? So what about these fires, Doug?
Before we get there, I want to go to the Franco 2021 article.
Please do.
Work-life balance in higher education, a systemic review. You just described the whole quote that I copied from that article.
Awesome.
Right? Work-life balance addresses not only the structure of conflicts and family, but involves other concerns like health, leisure, personal development, community commitments. Like, you just nailed every single one of those. So I assume you just had that memorized and you had that all prepared. So thanks for that. Thanks for that prep.
As part of the emerging format, I will say, I've got like a really decent monitor over there. And I was like pleased enough that just this laptop configuration and webcam works. But I'm normally like, at this point in the podcast, I'm like looking over at another tab and being like, okay, like, and now, being able to guide it along. So I'm back in the office, but I'm still kind of just a little bit back on my heels here, bud, just because of the tech configuration. So I've noted the notes, and I'm sorry I'm not interacting with them live, just because, you know.
No worries. Hey, we're trying something new, right? Of course, it's welcome to something new, right? That's okay.
Well, and again, it all is something new here in Atlantic, Canada. Man, I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back. I will say that. Apart from being away from my kids, I mean, I just like, if you guys want to come be climate refugees from BC, totally. You know, it's
Absolutely.
like they got basketball here too. Really, you know, you can play your PS5 here just as easily, more or less. But they're still. It's like Kelowna's burning down right now, right, as we speak.
I have relatives that have been evacuated.
Yeah.
So
I'm like
the whole West Kelowna or West Bank or whatever they're
That's
calling
right.
it these days. That's all.
It's hit the urban area, right?
We have pictures that shocked me because there's Knox Mountain in Kelowna, and that's where we used to walk a lot. I would take the dogs and my wife and stuff, and
It's
would
a beautiful
walk.
area. West Kelowna
It's
is
fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing pictures, and it's like, holy crud! I have pictures of that. Like, I stood there, and it's just decimated. Like, I have a friend of mine and his family would come to West Kelowna, and they'd stay at this resort kind of thing. Like, it's like one of those 1960s, 1970s places. And it's gone. Like, literally, yeah, here's all the flames. Yeah, that was the room they were staying in last time I saw them, and it's just gone.
Well, and it's part of like the wider friggin' West Coast, you know, thing too, because, or, you know, Pacific region, because I was in the midst of my air travel, one of those trips, when the fire on Maui was like at its full thing. I was watching on the TV, one of the airport TVs, Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac. It's like his restaurant, you know, was just going up in flames, and it just had a little caption about that. Mick Fleetwood was at my sister's wedding. Mick Fleetwood was like my brother-in-law's one of his employers through his role as a corporate executive, yeah, his just like my sister's like putting out this GoFundMe link to help the people who used to work there, but it's like just the whole island just whoosh, I mean, not the whole island, but just like the urban parts of it. It's like something out of like a Stephen King novel, like The Stand or something. I mean, it's just like, anyway.
Well, when we moved from BC,
yep.
I was sad about a lot of stuff. Like I knew some fantastic people there, and I really enjoyed my time there. But I really liked getting to PEI and deleting the BC wildfire app, deleting the air quality app. Like, I liked deleting those things because I didn't need to worry about it. And then we got hit by a hurricane less than a year later. So it's half of one.
I'm finding the overabundance of fog in uptown St. John to be really refreshing. I'm just like, there's people who would literally, if we could sell them this fog, they would buy it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just dump all of our fog on top of their fires and whatnot. So it's just like, I'm watching all this stuff, and I'm like, well, it's like, on the one hand, sad my kids, are not really part of my daily thing as much anymore, but like, I can't think of like another summer of just oppressive, at the worst. Or at the best. I mean, the best case scenario is you just got to deal with oppressive smoke and you can't have a normal summer. Worst case scenario, you're losing your property, and your safety's at risk. I mean, that's just nuts.
And so for us, with our balance in our lives,
yes,
it was, let's make this move.
It's enhancing
so many boxes for us.
And again, I just feel like BC is kind of like with the fires basically every summer.
Yeah.
It's kind of like ground zero for climate change in a lot of ways. I mean, Yellowknife, they had to evacuate the entire city of Yellowknife. So my question is,
Yep.
like, there's only one road into Yellowknife, as I understood. So I'm like, I guess, like, where do they go? You know, they go to Hay River in Northwest Territories. Well, that was under evacuation as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess they go into northern Alberta, probably, more or less.
Edmonton. They've opened up a
Edmonton.
bunch of universities, and the residences are there.
So that's, and a lot of people, I think, would just, once that kind of thing is underway, I mean, so every summer, I mean, they've said about Kamloops, right? It's like people end up in Kamloops when, like, their city gets, fried. And it's, so, I mean, climate, I don't want to use the term climate refugees and make it sound, like I'm being like it's a joke or something.
No.
But I mean, the climate is, this kind of thing is causing some pretty significant personal changes to people's lives. It's not just like some kind of abstraction. So it just, for me, in terms of my balance, sense of balance, being here where I can sort of feel like I'm in sync with the nature and what nature is happening here. There's some lame stuff as far as that goes, but it's just, you don't have this Holocaust kind of thing every summer that like makes you have like these existential questions even, right? So.
Well, do you remember, was it Mali or the Maldives? One of those countries in the Indian Ocean where their tourist marketing hook was come see us while we're still here. Because the seas are rising. They just are. We're just not going to exist.
And if you start looking at it in terms of like the populations that are affected, and if you're talking about these, countries that are in the Caribbean, these islands, or these low-lying areas in Southern Asia, where the tsunami threat is very real. I mean, most of these countries, a lot of them are in the so-called global South, right? So not just like in terms of their geography and sort of warmer climates, but like these places do not have very much in terms of an economy or political influence. They have very small populations. So you could almost really say that in terms of this effects, it affects the impoverished, and in a lot of cases, indigenous kind of populations of these areas first. So there's like I don't know, egalitarian freedom aspect to this as well, too.
Yes, and so part of work-life balance and how this works is what is okay for the normal, right? And that's deeper than I really want to go today. But we people have been accepting normal, and this is where it's heading to the world. So yeah, that's not good. We might need to rethink what's normal, and we might need to figure out other things to do, right? It's like, okay, my health matters, right? But everybody's health matters. So why are we doing this? Like, I can give up some of the stuff I've got to say, okay, yeah, I don't need the sea level to rise anymore. We've wandered off.
I give myself a disproportionate amount of credit for not knowing how to drive. Never owned a car. I mean, I bought a car, but I've never owned it because I bought it for my wife. I can be like, all the money that people spend on cars, that's how I got 850 records in there. I just look at it like, what do you spend on a car? Like what, $200 a month, insurance, gas, and all that?
More than that.
More than that, right?
More than that.
So like,
I spend more than $200 a month on gas. That doesn't include insurance.
So it's like when I'm on my ridiculous middle-aged man Instagram putting on my records, I'm just like, this is a man who just doesn't spend that on that. He spends it on this. And I've kind of by default taken this kind of stupid aspect of my character where I just didn't want to learn how to drive, didn't really care about it. Now I see it as like I'm making some intentional priorities about where I put those resources, where I put the whole bandwidth of like, well, I'm in my car, I'm driving my car, I'm going somewhere in my car, gotta park the car, gotta do something with the car. It's just like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna walk to and from my apartment, and get to everything mostly, and then I'll take shared communal transit. It's like, I'm not saying I'm part of the solution because clearly that would be ridiculous, but I will say I've just kind of got this stupid aspect of my character that now I'm like, okay, I can see the potential benefits of this that justify it now somewhat more than I could when I was younger. So,
and part of your balance is looking at it differently, right?
Yeah.
Because literally I bought in, right? As soon as I had a job, I had a car, and I've had vehicles, except when I was in Australia, the first year or two in Australia, I just had a bike, and that was great. But once I got a vehicle, okay, there's the expenses again. Then I had to find more money.
What expenses, and then, I mean, it's just like, your sense of like how you're going to get around, what you're going to do, the way you structure your interactions. It's just like, I just don't have that in my repertoire whatsoever. And a lot of the time it's annoying as hell, but increasingly less. It's just like, how can you live in Canada without a car? How can you live in a small place without a car? It's just like pretty easily. I just, intentionally plan what I do. And the delivery apps, I'll tell you, have you tried the Instacart app?
No.
Okay, so like they'll go to Costco for you. They'll friggin' go to Giant Tiger for you. They'll go to Walmart or Loblaws for you. And so like I've ordered like t-shirts and pants, and then an hour and a half later they show up,
Wow.
like it's just like no. So it's like skip the dishes, except it's like for consumer goods. So I'm like, okay, I guess I need, 6 friggin' coat hangers and, a box of cereal and some silk chocolate milk, almond chocolate milk. I'm like, okay, like someone will do that for me. That's the joys of the new economy. Do I pay a bit more for it? Yes. Do I have to spend the time going to the store? I get to keep that time. Do I, all the stupid peripheral stuff, I would just be like, oh, I need this and that and the other. Additionally, like I'm not going to do that. Everything will be more.
Yeah, I'm proud of myself the 2 times I've been to Costco and only bought what was on my list. Because I always buy more stuff. Always. And that's why grocery stores move stuff around. So you see other things you want to buy, right? They do that on purpose. That's a psychology or
It's like IKEA when they make you walk through the maze of stuff to get. I don't know if you've ever been to an IKEA store.
Oh, many times, yeah.
Yeah, like they make you go through that whole maze at the end to get to the checkouts, where it's like, you need a spatula? No, well, here's 6 different kinds. Okay, yep. I need a spatula.
So I want to jump down to some of my cutesy little quotes and pictures and stuff.
Yes.
I found somebody, I think it was on Twitter, and they said, tomorrow we will do it. Tomorrow me loves to do things. And that just reminded me of my life. It's like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. It's Seinfeld had a thing about that. It's like evening guy always screws morning guy. Evening guy always says, oh yeah, I can do that in the morning, or I don't need that much sleep. And then morning guy's like, oh no, what have I done?
Well, that's awesome. And just to correct you, Doug, it's not called Twitter anymore. It's called X.com. And if you continue to use the platform, I'm going to insist that everybody using it calls it X.com, because that's what it's called.
So you're going to gatekeep me? Good luck. I'm not a big fan of marketing. I'll call it whatever.
I
right?
think
And I think it's a
it's
stupid
such a
idea.
dumpster fire that when Musk did that, I'm like, way to just make your platform even dumber, man. Like, well done, you know. But
Did you see what the Monterey Aquarium did? The
no,
Monterey Aquarium are done with Twitter or X or whatever they're going to call it, and their last post was, "So long, thanks for all the fish," and it was like that is the best sign off, because if you've ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right, like
Right.
that's just perfect.
no, it's that's awesome of them. Monterey, California, um, they're legit in terms of
Oh yeah.
their aquatic presence. You know, they got pretty offshore, pretty abundant sea life down there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I've just realized with my little memes that I threw in, I was
Sure.
tired when I did this.
Okay.
Because every single one of them is like, I'm tired, I don't have the energy, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it later, I'll do whatever. Because there's one, do you ever see the meme of the couple holding hands and then the guy turns to look at the woman in the red dress?
Yeah.
Well, somebody did one about academics, right? And they broke it up and they put pro on him, and the lady looking at him in disgust is productivity. So that'd be productivity. And then he's looking at the lady in the red dress, and that's procrastinate, like procrastinate. I would much rather procrastinate than be productive, because that's just my life right now. So
I
so
feel
when
like, yeah,
when this topic
it's
came
always
up, I
nice
was
to have more things to look forward to, right? That's important.
true enough. True enough. So I got three little things. I got the word of the podcast is balance, because we're finding our balance again, which is cool. Looking forward to that. The phrase of the podcast is just happy to be back. I was just so happy to be back and doing this because I really missed it. And the question of the podcast is, how can educators find balance in their lives with all the contradicting pressures on their time and attention?
Wow, that's
We just
really
spent
well thought out, bud.
Yeah, well, we just spent the whole summer doing that, right? So let's see what we got. Let's see how we roll.
Truly, son. Truly, son. I almost called you my son. It's like, you know, but it was like more of like a maritimerism. I was
Yep.
I was trying to explain to my older boy, you know, while he was here, you know, it's like when I was in BC or in Ontario or whatever, I would like throw in like these fake maritimeisms for my own amusement.
Yeah,
Like,
I get
howdy,
it.
miss. Howdy, son. Friggin' A right, son. Friggin' A tight, son. Like this. And I'm almost at the point now where I say, friggin' A right, son. And my son will go, friggin' A tight, son, you know, in response, because that's how lame I am. So, but now it's like, you know, I go around with this friggin' New Brunswicky friggin' thing on my arm. And now I don't want to say self-conscious about it, but it's like, I feel like I need to explain to people, I got this when I lived in BC and have been away for a long time. It's, you know, like you are here, you know, like it's right in front of you. It's like, where's Waldo? It's like, oh
yeah.
boy, I am Waldo. Like, ah. But anyway.
Yeah, I picked up maritimeisms when I left. Like the stuff I didn't say when I lived here initially, like Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Right? I never said that, but I moved out west and I picked it up. Right? Because it's like I needed that
parts
time.
of your character. Like it's just like, oh, you are there, you know.
Yeah.
You got your rubber boots and your friggin', you know, like
Your
yellow
Southwestern
poncho
stuff,
as
yeah.
well. Like, come on, man.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, man, I'm glad that this has worked. I know just from the feed that I think I probably glitched out briefly a few times, but it seemed to resolve itself. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, the bandwidth issues that we had we figured out a way around that, I think. So
Yeah, and we're trying new things, we're exploring, we're figuring out how to use the technology as a tool. The technology is not the center. the message and the conversation's more important.
Well, that's been, part of it since day one. And for me, and I know for you, I mean, that's just like part of the ethos, from when you're in one of these programs, like a graduate program or whatever, pedagogy before technology, teaching before, the whiz bang. It's really, how do you use this stuff in the moment for the people you're with? That's, the primary motivator. What do you want to do first? The technology, you should consider it, but it should not determine anything, in my opinion. Right? So,
yeah, we're on the same page, which I think is why we've made it to 30-some episodes now.
I had to kind of go back to the scale it back to the basics here, Doug, a little bit. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess bye
We'll
for
say
now.
goodbye.
Thanks for listening. Yeah. Okay.
Talk to you later.